John, Michael Kay is going to be our first ever three-time guest on the show. I don't think we could have picked much better for our first three-timer.
Yes, great to have him on. We always have on people that we know, acquaintances, good acquaintances, but to have a personal friend we've had for 30 years, and we're going to be able to ask him some personal questions about his career, as well as the Yankees, who have not been as great as we thought they would be. It's a treat. I'm looking forward to it.
You know who hasn't been great? The Mets. We're going to dive into them as we do almost every week about how not great they are. And we're going to talk about two teams that have played great, especially recently, the San Francisco Giants and the Cincinnati Reds. That's if you stick with us on the show with Joel Sherman and John Heyman. John, we keep going through these moments. You know, you have the beginning of the season, the first month. We say, it's only the first month. Let's get to Memorial Day. Then you get to Memorial Day, and it's like, okay, let's get to, well, we are recording on the first day of summer, June 21st. And next weekend, by next weekend, I think every team will have played half their games. I think we can't play the it's early anymore card for teams that are struggling. And one of them is a team we cover with regularity. The New York Mets, who, as we're recording, are 34-39. They're closer to last place in the NL East than even to a wild card spot, not to mention the 13 or so games they're behind the Braves. John, I'm just going to ask the big picture question. We've asked it before. What do you think of these Mets?
Well, we've been expressing concerns for weeks on this show now that they do not look good. We are not early in the season. You're right. This is the first day of summer. Not everybody points to the 2019 Nats and the 2021 Braves like they're going to repeat that, or even last year's Phillies. But obviously those are aberrations. I do think on paper they should be much better than this. But they're not good. They're really not good right now. I don't know if there's any other way to say it. They look like they might start to get good every once in a while. And Scherzer and Verlander have shown signs recently of being good or better than they've been. I mean, those are the two key guys, I think, on the team. But it's been a rough beginning, and they're in a bit of trouble.
Yeah, I think those remain. I think you're right, John. I think those guys remain the two key guys. And I think they think Quintana is going to make a start before the All-Star break. And I think they'd like to see a little of that together to see if that stabilizes and that stabilizes the bullpen. And it's worthwhile for them to do something at the trade deadline. I wrote about this in the Post today, the question of should they do something? Look, I just want to say this also is you say something long enough, you could sometimes miss it. We keep saying the National League is going to play low. The National League is going to play low. Right now, the Dodgers are the third wild card. They're on an 89 win pace. Mets got to hurry up if they're going to get to 88, 89, 90. And so, they're in the bottom half of the league in everything, in starting pitching, in relief pitching, in runs per game, in defensive efficiency. So, John, what do you think about them as we head towards the trade deadline? Like as far as being buyers, sellers, or staying neutral?
I don't think they're going to be a seller, nor do I think that they should be a seller. I just don't see that.
Can I ask John to jump in there? Do you think there's a games back or games under 500 where pragmatism does have to stay in? It's like, say, 5 under right now. If on July 20th, you're sitting 10 under, 10 back of even a third wild card. I mean, is there a number where you have to be pragmatic and ignore what the names and the salaries are?
Yeah, I'm sure there's a number. I don't think they're there yet. And I'm not sure what can they sell that's actually going to get them something great back. I mean, obviously you wrote in the Post today about it and cited Robertson, who's been terrific, and everybody needs bullpen, and you'll get something good for him. But I mean, he's a reliever.
The Cubs got a good starting prospect in Ben Brown for him last year. I think that the Mets
I don't see them giving up the playoffs for Ben Brown, though. I get it. I mean,
I agree with you. I think the lead to that column is I still think that there'll be small buyers along the way.
I think so too. But it is interesting to pose the question: could they be a seller? Once you pose that question, you've got to figure out who can they sell. I mean, Carrasco. He's not going to have much value at this point. Maybe even Quintana, if he comes back and pitches well, he's been a good candidate for trading in the past. Certainly been a lot part of a lot of trades and brought a lot back in the past. So maybe Quintana, but I mean, you can't really trade Scherzer or Verlander, right? That's not happening. They have no trades. At their salary, you'd have to pay a lot of it down, and I just don't see them doing that. I think,
and I don't see any team taking on the second year for either of them.
No,
both have shown enough frailty and lack of production this year, where the 43 for next year becomes the issue. Because if they were both running out after this year, in theory, Steve Cohen could say, well, it's a sunk cost. I'll pay the rest of this year to just get into the good prospects, right? He so badly wants to build up this farm system.
Yeah, and if I'm the Mets, I'm thinking there is a chance that they become sure. Look, Verlander had a 1.75 ERA last year, right? I don't know. Is he diminished physically? Obviously missed the first month or more with an injury. Maybe he's just kind of coming back and he's going to be better. I mean, I think if you're the Mets, that's what you have to bet on, that you sneak into the playoffs and that Verlander and Scherzer, having not thrown as many innings as they normally do, become themselves in the playoffs and put them on a surprise run. That's kind of what you have to bet on. I just don't see them as sellers. Although in this market, even these, okay sale items, shall we say, will bring more than you'd think, because really there aren't a lot of good sellers at this point.
Yeah, if they become forced sellers, I think they just have to sell what they can. Certainly all the walkier guys, Robertson, Ottavino, Canna, Pham, etc., Escobar, and just try to add pitching to the organization, even if we're talking about seventh inning guys. Like we're seeing, part of the problem is they can't reach down, unlike the Yankees, who seem to reach down and be able to find guys to pitch, at least sixth, seventh, eighth inning. They can. John, as we're sitting here today, the Mets are out of the playoffs. From who was supposed to be in the playoffs who were in the playoffs last year. And by the way, the 6 National League teams who were in the playoffs last year, they were the 6 supposed to be in this year pretty easily. And instead, we've got San Francisco, Miami, Arizona, and Cincinnati would be the 4 interlopers. Just because we had Mike Hazen and Kim Ng on recently, and we asked a lot about Arizona and Miami. Can we focus a little bit? And Cincinnati and San Francisco are the 2 hottest teams in the sport. As we're seeing here, San Francisco, 9 straight wins. They're coming off an 81-81 season after they won 107 games. Believe or disbelieve?
I sort of believe at this point. I mean, don't go by my predictions. If anybody saw them, and we're hiding, I'm trying to get all the copies of our baseball preview issue and throw them away. My predictions were abysmal this year. One year I was so good, people thought I faked it or rigged it somehow, even though I'm a technologically a dunce. I could not have done that. This year I'm the worst you could be. I do think the Giants are the most unpredictable organization. They won 107 games out of nowhere, so I'm giving myself a partial pass on that. I'm not counting them out in any way. If Cobb is healthy, you've got Cobb and Webb, and they have a feisty lineup. I don't know, maybe it helps. What do they have, 20 coaches or 25? Maybe it helps to have 20 coaches. I don't know. Maybe other teams will do it. They seem to have a great attitude about it, and a very feisty team. They're never out of it. You've got to admire what they've done. So I'm not going to be the one that comes on here and says that they're not going to do it this year. And certainly in the National League, I thought we had the 6 teams going in, and those don't look like the 6 teams anymore. And I'm going to say the Giants have a real shot.
Yeah, it's interesting. They lack a superstar in their everyday lineup, but they did this 2 years ago when they won 107 games. They just pieced together. And I would just throw out 3 players with New York ties who are having real good years for them.
Right.
That J.D. Davis trade looks worse and worse all the time because of how bad Darren Ruff was.
The guy is raking. The guy is raking.
286, 10 homers, a 133 OPS plus. The Yankees just sold Thairo Estrada to the Giants. He's turned into very good defensive second baseman, 27 extra base hits, 17 steals, and a 120 OPS plus. And Michael Conforto, the OPS plus is only 106, but he's got 12 homers. And the other thing that stood out is they're bringing young players up. And those guys they're not household big prospect names, but the Blake Sables, Casey Schmidt, Patrick Bailey group. Yeah, and now Matos to play center field. And do they eventually pull the trigger on Kyle Harrison, their top pitching prospect, to your point, they're getting something strong out of Logan Webb and Cobb at the top. They probably need, that's an area between now and August 1st they probably have to address. John, let me pivot to the Reds, because the Giants have a 9-game winning streak. Somehow we have a team with a 10-game winning streak, the Reds. And in those 10 games, they've gone from last place to first place in the NL Central. And so I guess the question is, same as before, do you believe?
I'm a little more reluctant on this one. I know they won 10 in a row. They have great young players. They do a great job with the draft, with international signings. They are the hot team. I just looked at their box score. Their top 8 guys are hitting 263 or better. There's no other team like that in baseball, right? The averages are still not brought up much by the banning of the shift. This baseball's still hitting below 250, and they are hitting up a storm. Obviously, L.A. De La Cruz has been magnificent. He's got incredible talent. Matt McLean could be a future star. Fraley, Friedel, all these guys are performing. It's hard to talk against them. I still kind of think that the experience factor will weigh in eventually. They do have 4 good young pitchers, and I do believe in their future. I think they're going to be a good team going forward. I'm still going to be surprised if they win that division. They're leading now. They've won 10 in a row. I could be proven wrong once again. I do like Lodolo particularly. Right now, you've got Hunter Green hurt, and they're going to be a buyer. They're going to look to get a veteran starter. They're going to look to bulk up that bullpen to go with Alexis Diaz. You never know. And there is no great team in that division, but on paper, I still kind of look at the Brewers, the Cubs, and even the Cardinals as better teams. I'm batting about 0 on my predictions this year, but I kind of think they're not gonna win that division in the end.
Yeah, I think Lodolo's out for quite a while. You mentioned Hunter Green has a hip issue. He just went on the injured list. I think Ashcraft comes off the injured list this weekend to take Green's place. I like the young talent. You mentioned they need a veteran starter. So I know teams don't like to act without a deadline. I know teams don't like to trade really before the draft is done. Let's get through one big hurdle before the next. But is there a reason in the world why the Reds and the White Sox shouldn't make a Lance Lynn trade right now?
That's funny. That's the name I mentioned on MLB Network yesterday. It's funny.
I mentioned it in an MLB Network meeting yesterday. I said to the research guy, to Nate, I said, is there a reason in the world the Reds don't just get Lance Lynn to be able to pitch 5 to 7 innings regularly? It's kind of what they need at about league average. He'll be helped by what seems to be a good young offense and speed and athleticism all around. I think we all agree the White Sox, even if we say the AL Central stinks, the White Sox stinks worse than the AL Central. Go ahead. Lynn is a free agent at the end of the year. Go ahead and get a good prospect back for it right now. Why wait till July 31st, August 1st?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see the White Sox doing that, but, I just kind of connected it because he's a good guy for the team, veteran starter from Indiana. I like to connect. That's kind of Reds territory. So I like to connect geography. Not that it means that much. I just think he'd be a good guy for a staff with all those kids on it and a guy who stays healthy and is, obviously he's been a little inconsistent this year, but generally been consistent. I don't see them trading this quickly. He is a likely free agent at the end of the year. I believe they have an option at the end of the year, but it's an expensive one.
It's like a 17 million option,
something like 17 or 18. So I don't see that happening early, but I think that's a name to watch because he, despite his ERA, guy strikes out 16. That's what guys look for nowadays, and he's a good veteran.
And takes the ball and gives innings. So for a rotation that's minus guys that doesn't have easy answers down in the minor leagues, that's probably going to have inning caps on someone like Abbott, etc. He feels like the right guy. John, you were saying you like geography. This is you and I, New York guys. I think we need to bring on a third New York guy from the Bronx. Michael Kay will be joining us next on the show with Joel Sherman and John Heyman. John, I know we're always happy to have our friend and colleague Michael Kay as a guest on the show. Mike, thanks so much for joining us. Mike, Alex Rodriguez, Tim Kirchin, Sunday on ESPN, the London game, Cardinals and Cubs, besides all the other stuff he does, the play-by-play man on Yes, his show, the Michael K Show, 3 to 7, ESPN New York. Mike, I'm wondering if a place to start here is obviously you're broadcasting the games of the Yankees, and I just keep having this thought. Is it possible that Giancarlo Stanton, Josh Donaldson, and DJ LeMahieu are just shot, and that 1/3 of the Yankee lineup is now expensive, but no longer even average major league hitters?
Well, for an organization, Joel, that really depends so much on numbers. The numbers would indicate that it's a downward trend. If you look at LeMahieu, who had a great first half last year, and then the toe started to bother him. The second half was dreadful. Josh Donaldson did not play well last year offensively. Defensively, he still had it. And for Giancarlo Stanton, I'd be less apt to say shot, because we've seen this with him before, where there's just long stretches of ineptitude, then all of a sudden he can't miss. I just think with Giancarlo Stanton, it seems like the new trend is, well, you don't need any rehab games. I think he played once, and he really looks like he's out of sync up there. But let's just go with your premise. If they're shot, then the Yankees are in trouble, especially if Aaron Judge is going to be out a longer time than is indicated.
Hey, Mike, thanks for joining us. We're very lucky in New York to have two of the best play-by-play guys in all of baseball, and we appreciate you coming on. I was just going to take more of a global look at the Yankees. I agree with you on Giancarlo. I think he's a streaky guy, and he'll be good and probably very good if they get to the playoffs. Is this a playoff team that we're watching in New York?
You know, I hate to hedge. That's not my way. If they get back Judge and they get back Rodon, I believe they are a playoff team. I believe that they are a team that if they start to roll, that they could be a championship contender. We had John Smoltz on our show yesterday, our radio show, and he said if the Yankees make the playoffs, they will be the most difficult out of any team. So I think they could be very good. Judge was great before he got hurt in LA. So, yeah, I think they have the components. I think that Rizzo can still play very quietly. Torres is having a pretty decent year. They're going to need a little bit more offensively from Anthony Volpe. But, you know, if Bader stays healthy and if Judge gets back, then I think they've got the components to be very good, especially if they get Rodon back and Cole pitches the way he did on Tuesday.
I like John Smoltz's initials, JS, but I'm wondering about them being a tough out. I'm watching it. They talk a great game, Mike. Their hitting coach, Dylan Lawson, their players, we got together, situational hitting, runners in scoring position. They're the same offense they've always been. Like, what are we talking about here? They're going to fall at the knees of any team that has good pitching. And by the way, you know what we've added to this team this year? They don't draw walks. Like, that used to be a part of their thing. You know why they don't draw walks? Nobody's afraid of any hitter in the lineup not named Aaron Judge. How is this lineup a championship lineup?
Well, I think that they could score just enough. I don't think it's a lineup that's going to put up big numbers, but their starting pitching is pretty good. And, you know, the one thing that's been a constant throughout Boone's tenure is that he does manipulate these pitchers into a pretty good bullpen. And if they could somehow get back Jonathan Loaisiga in September, that's an incredible weapon that they could throw at people. Would I say they're a championship favorite? No, but I think that if they went on a run at the right time like the Phillies did, that would make them a problematic out. But I will tell you this, Joel, I think you hit it right on the nose. The fact that they have an under 300 on base percentage is absolutely startling. And the problem could be when Judge gets back, everybody's going to go to school on what this lineup is, and they're not going to throw him strikes. And we saw that last year when he was chasing 62 in September. They just stopped throwing him strikes. That's why it took him so long to hit 60, 61, and 62. If that is the approach, then they could have some problems. The other guys do have to hit.
We mentioned Volpe. I think his defense has been solid. He's shown some power. His work ethic is incredible. He's a great kid, but he is hitting 191 as we hit the summer. They said it's not a 3-week commitment. We're, going to be going on 3 months pretty soon. I understand this is not his doing. It's not his fault. as if, we're tough in New York. Obviously, they're over 500. We're talking about fault. For the Post today, I talked to some scouts who thought he should go down and change his swing and get rid of the uppercut. He says he doesn't go for launch angle. The scouts are seeing something different. What do you see, and do you believe? I mean, they wouldn't be going back on their word now if they sent him to the minors to work on some things. What do you think about that?
Well, it's a complicated equation here because obviously he's very important to the brand. He's a first-round draft pick. He's a local kid. He grew up a Yankee fan. So all those things check all the boxes. He's incredibly respectful to everybody. His teammates love him, but he has been frankly overmatched at the plate. And his average has gone down steadily in each month from April to May to June. The thing that's alarming to me is he's not drawing any walks. So, his top asset, his speed, he can't use. He's 15 for 15 in stolen bases. He should be 35 for 35 if he'd gotten on base more. And the funny thing about the uppercut, John, I don't know if he's trying to hit home runs, but somebody I really respect when I was down in spring training, who is a fan of his, let's put that caveat, really thinks that Volpe could be a star in the league. He said there's going to be one problem this year. He has a slight uppercut in his swing, and Major League Baseball teams figure this out in a hurry, and they are going to exploit him upstairs. And we've seen that. And I know he has the 9 home runs, but I believe he has at this point over 80 strikeouts. Just is too much. If you're going to have 80 strikeouts at this point, you have to have home runs in the 20s. I think the Yankees will watch closely if it affects him defensively. As long as he makes the plays in the field, I think that they will hang with him. But you're right, John. If they decide he needs more seasoning down in the minors, I don't think that they went back on their word. I mean, they've given him a 2.5, 3-month run here, a runway, as they would call it. Derek Jeter got sent down. Mariano Rivera got sent down. Mickey Mantle got sent down. Don Mattingly got sent down a couple of times. It's no career crusher. And if it crushes your career, then you're probably not the right guy for this job anyway.
And not to mention, they have somebody in Peraza who I recognize that the AAA pitching is terrible and numbers are up, but he is performing at AAA. They know he can handle the defense. He handled himself well in the major leagues for the last month last season. And look, I mean, I like the Volpe story. With 2 strikes, he's Joey Gallo. He's a helpless hitter with 2 strikes. And I would just ask the larger question. I take away Aaron Judge. When does this organization ever produce position players worth anything? Like, it was my question about Volpe. We've gone from Derek Jeter to Aaron Judge, where you want to give me a Brett Gardner, whatever creation Robinson Cano was, real or fake. But essentially, this is not an organization that produces position players or makes them better once they get here.
Well, I think the worst thing that happened, Joel, to Anthony is that the team stopped hitting. So all of a sudden it became very apparent. It just stared you right in the face. The number 9 hitter sitting under 190 at one point. Now he's under 200. So I just think it just brings attention to it. A team that can't score runs and there's one out in the lineup that, pitchers can take a deep breath. I still think the kid has talent, but I don't know if the organization produces talent or not. You bring up pretty compelling points, but I do laugh because on the radio show, everybody always says, well, they haven't created anybody since other than Aaron Judge. Well, that's a pretty good guy to create. So, I mean,
every once in a while, though, you got to create good players too. Right. You can't go Jeter to Judge and then say, we're going to sit on those laurels and never produce even average major league players. It's really, especially from the draft. I I got Brett Gardner in the last 25 years besides those 2 guys. You got anybody else?
No. And one of the main excuses that the Yankees always give is that, they finish high up in the standings, so they have low draft picks, but so do the Dodgers. And then the Dodgers farm system continues to.
Every once in a while in 25 years, you could get somebody out of the 2nd or 3rd round of the draft who's a good player.
I would agree. And that they do trade a lot of their young prospects, but a lot of them they also hold on to too long, like Andujar and Clint Frazier and Gary Sanchez. And those players then become less valuable than they had if you trade them at the top of their value.
Joe, I think Joe made good points. I would count Cano. I hear what you're saying, Joe, but I would count Cano as a good position player. I understand he was tagged twice for illegalities in baseball, but pretty good player. Let me ask you about Gerrit Cole, Michael. obviously he's one of the free agent signings that's really worked out. I mean, there's an argument that he's the best pitcher in baseball. Obviously, I don't think you're going to dispute that. What did you think about last night, though? My position is I'm the only one who thinks this, but I didn't write it. But I thought he should have been booted from the game for throwing that pitch 100 feet over everybody's head. I don't know what he was doing. I don't mind the wagging his finger because obviously he said the manager's service was wagging it at him, so we can wag it back. But what was going on with him? I do like the fact that he's competitive, feisty, and great. Those are all great qualities. But what was happening last night? What was that?
Well, I'm a big Gerrit Cole fan. I mean, I very rarely do this, but last year at one point I went down to the clubhouse and said, you know what? I just love watching you pitch. He's an artist who actually is also a power pitcher, and I love that. I think he comes to play every single game. He has an unbelievable commitment to his craft. Caballero has been looked at a lot. I was talking to one of the writers that covers Seattle, and they said the team knows he's going to get beamed. He just annoys pitchers. Now that's a little bit much because he's doing it within the rules. He's certainly exploiting the rules, but they are the rules. I don't have a problem with what Cole did. I think it was almost playful. Didn't come anywhere close to hitting him. I know you're a Law and Order guy, so you want him thrown out there. But I actually think it was. So am I. But I thought it was all in fun. If he get thrown at the guy's head, that's a different story. But I mean, it looked like he threw at John Sterling's head, so I had no chance of hitting a arrow there.
Yeah, we don't want to hit Sterling again. He's already been hit once this year.
That's too much. One too much.
Exactly.
Mike, we've mentioned the value of Cole and Judge. Major League Baseball teams aren't supposed to be like NBA teams where it's two players, and if you lose one, you're in big trouble. Obviously the Yankees also, to your point, they have good relief pitchers. It is one of the areas where they get guys and make them better, as opposed to their hitters at the major league level. I wonder just writ large about Brian Cashman's done this job a long time. I think the Yankees have played 17 games mathematically eliminated in 25 years. Still, do you think him and his baseball operations department still have the touch that they're putting together a good team, or they were able to go to the top of the market for Cole and Judge? And besides that, they're the Scranton Wilkes-Barre Rail Riders.
It's a very complicated question, Joel. I mean, the hatred for Cashman that I get on my radio show on a daily basis, I'm sure you guys get it on Twitter and in your emails. It's just unbelievable. There's two prisms that you could look through. They haven't been to a championship game since 2009. That's not good when you have one of the top payrolls. Every single year, they're competitive. You can make the argument that every single year they have a chance to win a championship. I think that the Yankees have hurt themselves, Joel, by continuing with the narrative championship or bust. Anything less than a World Series is a failure. That goes all the way back to George. I don't think they could sell that to the fans anymore, because when it doesn't happen and then the same people remain in charge, it's not a great optic. So I think that Brian still has the touch. Whether or not he has the touch to build a championship team, that remains to be seen. The one thing that bothers me when I talk to Brian about that stuff is that he says, their secret sauce works through 162 games, and then in the postseason, it's a crapshoot. Well, my answer is then get a better system, because it doesn't seem to be a crapshoot for the Astros. You should not build a system that's a crapshoot in the most important time of the year. That's not good business. So they've got to get something that works over 162 and works in the postseason.
Let me switch gears here and talk about you for a second. Being a play-by-play guy for a team is a full-time job, yet you've got another full-time job as a guy who runs the Michael Kay Show, obviously by that name, in New York, on ESPN Radio. And that's more than a full-time job. That's a lot of work. You have to follow all the other sports. Now, you're obviously quite a bit older than I am. How are you able
Excuse me? 5 days, everybody. 5 days older.
Well, it's older is older. Now, how are you able to do this? And I'll answer the second one. How long are you going to do this? I think you're going to do this until you're 90, but why don't you answer better than I do?
The way I could do it is PEDs, and dabbled in. You know what it is, John? It's all I know. I mean, you knew me as a newspaper writer. Like the two of you guys, I'm a worker, and that's kind of all I know. So, last year when I took the 10 weeks off from the radio show, sometimes I felt, lost. I only had one job. It's nice. It's relaxing. I don't think I can keep this pace up until I'm 90. As you said, I don't think I'm going to live till I'm 90. I hope. I mean, that's the way it is. I hope that I do the Yankee gig for a long time. I did re-up at the radio show because I just still enjoy doing it. And in the winter, it's a great gig. It becomes really tough during the baseball season to do both of them. But at this point, I don't see a finish line in terms of the radio show. And I hope that nobody sees the finish line for me for the Yankees. So I love doing the games. I always have. It was my dream job. And every day when I walk in the booth, I still look around and go, I'm pretty lucky to be doing this for 32 years.
Mike, it's not often that I'm the baby in a group, but I'm actually more than 5 days younger than both of you. Though our history goes back to the late 80s and early 90s together on the Yankee beat. Me and you, we're not going to show any film clips from our house in the Hamptons in the mid 80s.
No.
Though a lot of famous people came out of that house. But Mike, I wonder, you brought up before when you were asking, I always find this interesting to ask somebody as how high a profile as you. You mentioned the negativity around Cashman. There's also negativity, right? Like when you're high profile, if I'm getting it and I get vicious stuff, I can only imagine yours is 10 times that, 20 times that. And I know we've talked that you're sensitive about it. It's hard to run away from it. How do you handle it?
It bothers me. I mean, it does. I don't run away from it. I wish I could. I wish I was more like you. I actually envy you because you have an ability to just shut things off and say, worthless. I'm not going to deal with it. I've always been that guy. If I go into a party and 99 people like me and one person doesn't, I'll go home thinking about, why didn't that one person like me? I mean, for the most part, I get a lot of love from the audience, both radio and TV. But, there's going to be the loud minority that says you stink, you're the worst. I hate your guts. I can't believe you ruined the Yankee experience for me. And, I'm supposed to be able to shake it off, but I don't just have thin skin. I have translucent skin. I hope it gets better, but I'm 62 years old and it hasn't gotten better. So I doubt it's going to get any better.
What can I just follow it, Mike? Are you able to shut it off? Like, is there days where you're with Jody and the kids and you say, you got me today, I'm shutting it down, I'm not looking at anything? Are you able to ever kind of avoid what is a door, if you open it, will have a couple of punches in the gut?
When I'm with the kids, I try to stay in the moment and engage. And with Jody, my happy time is like last Saturday. My son was playing in a championship Little League game. He's 8 years old and he got the walk-off hit. And I was running around like Jim Valvano when he won the championship. I mean, I can't remember being as happy as I was in that moment. And I wasn't looking at the phone and I was present. And, that's important. But I do fight it. I'm not going to sit here and be a hero and go, oh, I completely shut it off. I do fight it. Like, so if we're in a restaurant and the kids go to the bathroom, I'll take a look at my phone. Now, I'm not looking for me. I'm looking for what's going on in the sports world because I'm doing the radio show too, because Twitter, if used the right way, is a good source of information. But then, the hate pops up and whether it ruins your day or not, it's a matter, it's just a matter of what kind of mood you're in. So again, I wish I could be better at it. I'm sure that if I decided ever to go to a psychiatrist, they send me to Vienna and it would be a 24-hour thing, but I could never see telling all my problems to a stranger. So I just live with the torment in my mind.
Well, on your radio show, you've been engaged with a healthy competition, first with Mike Francesa.
Very healthy.
Very healthy. That's a euphemism, Mike. I think we both know that. With Mike Francesa, lately with Carton and Beningo, and then Carton and Roberts. Carton reportedly is going to TV with Fox and leaving that. How does that affect you? And how does the whole competition thing affect you?
Well, I try to figure out radio ratings, and I think they are absolutely unreliable and bogus when you're judging an 11 million person footprint with, 500 meters. It's somewhat ridiculous, but again, those are how we keep score. And I was happy when we beat Francesa, and happy when we beat Beningo and Roberts, and happy when we beat Carlin, Maggie, and Bart. And then at the beginning, we did beat Carton and Roberts. And then the bottom fell out, and they have kicked our ass for about a year now. And it's certainly something that bothers me. Now that Craig is leaving to do TV full time, the narrative is, well, Kay's probably thrilled. No. I'd rather continue to get my butt kicked and try to win. Because if, let's say, we beat Tiki and Roberts, okay, it's still going to be, well, you didn't beat Craig at the end. I'm a ultra competitive person, so I would have liked to have gotten that done. Whether we could have or not, I'm not sure. But I wanted him to stay. I wanted to continue to try to beat him. But now that he left, he can always hold it over me, like I can hold it over Francesa. That the last time he was on the radio, we beat him. But I do have it in, I do have it in the holster that we did beat Evan and Craig for a book when I think it was like 3 months in when they first started. So I know that we could do it. But we were the number one show in the afternoon drive, not just sports, when COVID hit. And then when COVID hit, everything changed. I think listening habits changed, but I think all of that comes into play. And again, they kicked our butt. What can I say? And it's humbling, and I wish I could have done better, and I wish I would have continued to have the chance to do better.
Mike, I could speak for the competitiveness, right? The three of us were on the beat, and I could speak to what you say. You were first off the beat. John was next, and people would say, well, isn't it great that those guys are off? I was kind of like the senior guy at some point. I was like, no, because if you get a story against John Heyman and Michael Kay, you really get something, right? Like, those guys are so good. Jack Curry, that kind of group of guys. So I understand what you're saying. I wonder if I could wrap it up just by, I hope I'm not putting you on the spot about it, but does it bother you that somebody who has Carton's background is now kind of having this promotion, that he keeps getting pushed up? Or is it, hey, it's America, you serve your time, you do your dime, the whole thing, good for him?
I don't have a problem with it at all. I think that is what this country's about, second chances. Just because you make a mistake and you commit a crime doesn't mean that you shouldn't have a life after that. And I'm glad that he had the opportunity. I'm glad that he has further opportunities. What bothered me, though, was that when he first got out of jail, we gave him an hour platform on our show. Let him tell a story. And no, it was before he went to jail. Let him tell his story. And I always had a decent relationship with Craig. And what bothered me is that when he got the job in the afternoon, the discourse was so nasty, and he was so personal and stuff like that. I never did anything to him. That's not the way I do my show. I don't believe in doing it that way. Maybe the world is, I've outgrown the world. I listen to, just to go off on a tangent here, I listen to these championship parades and, Pete Alonso talking to Steve Gelbs on SNY and dropping F-bombs so casually in front of children and crowds and stuff like that. I can't do it. I can't be that guy. And if that's what it takes to be the ratings winner and be outrageous and stuff like that, I'm not going to do it. That's the only thing that bothered me about Craig Carton, is how nasty he was toward me when I never did anything to him, never fired back at him. And I've heard from people that told me he can't believe that you're not firing back at him. That's why he's firing at you, to get him to fire back. It's not what I do. That's not the way I want to succeed. But in terms of him getting a gig, I'm very happy for him. I'm happy for his family. And I hope he continues to stay on the straight and narrow, and that the Fox gig is a rousing success. I'm not being the politically correct guy, Joel. I'm really happy that he got a second chance. I'm not happy that he beat me, but I'm happy he got a second chance and he's getting another great job with Fox. He doesn't deserve to wallow in despair for the rest of his life because of a mistake that he made.
Mike, I'm happy Charlie got a big hit on Saturday, and that made you happy. That's where I am, because we've been friends for a long time. I'm a miserable
person, Joel.
Yeah,
I can't recall being that happy.
Yeah,
and it had nothing to do with me. It was just about my son.
Right. We know each other from all three of us from our low lives past, before we had 5 children among us, and I think we all understand when our children have great successes. I have 2 graduating from high school in the next 5 days. So,
Congrats.
I thank you. Anyway, Michael Kay, voice of the New York Yankees on the Yes Network, ESPN New York, 98.7, 3 to 7, the Michael Kay Show. And this Sunday with A-Rod, Tim Kirchin, the Cardinals and the Cubs, the London game. Mike, as always, we appreciate you joining us. And I know, John, I can speak for John. We always appreciate your friendship.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thanks again to Michael Kay, our friend and colleague, for joining us on the show. Obviously, Mike was a hit. John, what do you got this week? Hit or error?
I got a hit. I'm going to be positive. I know I dissed the Reds by saying I don't quite believe in them for this year, but they do a great job drafting. They do a great job internationally. They've been doing it for years. I mean, obviously, nobody expected the smallest market team tied with the Brewers to get Aroldis Chapman when they did, to sign Grandal, Yonder Alonso, and to draft as well as they have. Matt McLain looks to be overshadowed by L.A. De La Cruz, but a lot of people think, despite the fact that he's 5'8", he's going to be a star in this league. They have a lot of good young players, and you've got to love their future. Even if you don't predict they're going to win this year, you got to like their future.
If Anthony Volpe were playing like Matt McLain, there'd be a statue for him someplace in the Bronx already, the way it was treated in spring training. John, I'm going to do an error, and it's just, hey, I know we're never supposed to criticize the fans, but I don't care what your take is on the All-Star voting. I don't. When you start acting like it's the end of American civilization, that, like some guy is in second place instead of getting the most votes. Hey, it's a fan vote. Go out and vote. The right guys almost always end up there, especially because we'll have 10 to 12 people beg out at the end because they want a 4 or 5 day vacation. Trust me, it's the words you put onto it, like catastrophe, disaster, if this guy is the winner. I mean, let's see if we could get a big pill of perspective between now and the All-Star game.
Well, we like that enthusiasm, except when it's aimed at us particularly. So, I get it. You're right. It's overdone, and I think the voting has become more sophisticated. I think generally the fans do a good job, and I'm glad that they're enthusiastic and opinionated. It is a bit over the top. You're right.
We like them when they're enthusiastic, listening to the show, a podcast from the New York Post. Thank you, as always, to our producers, Jake Brown and Andrew Hartz, for helping get us through the show. Don't forget that the show drops on the Yes app. It will probably be now Thursday afternoon at about noon. Subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcast. And please join us every week on the show with Joel Sherman and John Heyman.